any forward-looking statements made today to reflect events or circumstances occurring after the date of this webcast. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you, Debbie. Chris, why don't we start with...
Hello everyone. Today I want to listen to the fireside chat from Hasbro because there have been some interesting things here. Now, one disclaimer from me before we go to the disclaimers from Hasbro is that they will be talking some management talk, and I will be your translator for today because I actually speak this language.
And thanks for joining us today, everyone. I'm Arpine Kocharyan, Leisure and Gaming Analyst with UBS, and we are really excited to have with us for a fireside chat Chris Cox, Chief Executive Officer of Hasbro, and Cynthia Williams, President of Wizard of the Coast and Digital Gaming, and Debbie Hancock, Head of Investor Relations at Hasbro. The focus of this call is going to be Hasbro's franchise brand, Magic the Gathering, and Hasbro's long-term strategy for its gaming business. Excuse me. But before I go any further, as an investment analyst, I'm required to provide certain disclosures relating to the nature of my own relationship and that of UBS with any company on which I express a view on this call today. These disclosures are available at ubs.com/disclosures, or please reach out to me and I can provide them to you after this call. Also, there will be no discussion of any confidential, restricted, or material non-public information on this call. This is only a 30-40 minute call, so we might not have time to open lines for Q&A, but feel free to send me questions by email if we don't address them on the call. With all of that out of the way, Chris, Cynthia, Debbie, welcome, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having us, Arpine.
Thanks.
Wonderful.
It's great to be here.
Thank you, Debbie. And I know you need to read some disclosures before we begin.
Yeah, I also have to do a short disclosure. So thank you for having us today. Just before we begin, I want to remind everyone that we may make some forward-looking statements. Our management team may make forward-looking statements concerning our expectations, goals, objectives, or similar matters, and that there are many factors that could cause actual results or events to differ materially from the anticipated results or other expectations expressed in these forward-looking statements.
We won't make
And
promises.
the factors are in our annual report on Form 10-K, our most recent 10-Q, and other public disclosures. And we have undertake no obligation to update any forward-looking statements made today to reflect events or circumstances occurring after the date of this webcast.
We don't have to.
Thank you, Debbie. Chris, why don't we start with you? You've been CEO of Hasbro since February. Obviously, unprecedented times, middle of a global pandemic, supply chain challenges and disruptions. But as we look forward, could you please update us on Hasbro's kind of branded entertainment strategy? And how is that different from what that strategy was before?
Yeah, well, hey, first off, thanks so much for having us. It's great to be on and be able to share a little bit of insight on the company, and particularly one of our favorite brands, Magic the Gathering. I think Cynthia will have a wealth of information to share on that. So in terms of our corporate strategy, the new strategy that we rolled out in October, we call Brand Blueprint 2.0. It's a continuation and an evolution of the successful blueprint strategy that we've been deploying for a little over a decade, which is all around the concept of engaging and surrounding the consumer with a host of great play and storytelling experiences.
Okay, so they are rebranding, or they have rebranded as he tells us right now, and it's more important to them. Oh, it's about the play, so that people can start and have a deck really fast. Well, I've been working on a video about a certain garden standard, and I had to make a deck with like 20 rares maybe. It's taking. I still haven't completed it. I've been playing like all the missions and stuff like that, but still takes me, I think, 3 weeks to fulfill most of the deck, and I don't think that play thing has really been working. It is still a collectible game more than anything, honestly. But there have been some products that work, like starter decks.
That build our brands, build our relationship with the consumer, and help us build a profitable and healthy business. You know, where I think the big points on the pivot on the strategy are in a couple areas. First off, we're shifting from a bit more of a breadth strategy with our old strategy to be more focused on a depth strategy. We call it fewer, bigger, better brands. Hasbro.
Okay. I was going to say because. But I was going to say because I don't feel like they are going in depth on products at all. They are definitely doing a broad strategy. What he is saying is that they are going to focus more on a few products and make them really good. And this might be true that they are focusing more on Magic the Gathering than on, let's say, Uno. But it still isn't really the case that they are really taking the time to make their products good. So this is really not a true statement. Of course, we can't hold them accountable to anything they say. Yeah, I don't trust the statement that they are focusing more on fewer products.
Pro has over 1,500 IP in our portfolio, and we're really going to focus in on about 8 to 10 brands and really grow them. And those brands are going to be in places that we have a lot of strength in the company, gaming being a big one, where we believe we can be the leader in the category, where we can drive above category growth, and where we can drive really nice profit profiles over the mid and long term.
So they will look for the brands at growth and profit, and growth being selling more stuff, I assume. So that does mean that when Magic the Gathering gets targeted, there will be more people watching the game, and there will be more people looking at the game, wanting it to be more profitable. So they won't be looking at, for the growth, they should be looking at customer satisfaction, but they will mostly be looking at profitability, is what he is saying.
The second aspect of the strategy is a focus on the consumer and really doubling down on our consumer insights, on understanding our consumers, and then also how we communicate with our consumers.
Okay, so he says we want to focus on our consumer, but it's mostly like how they react, and what drives them and why they buy stuff. It's not really focusing on their satisfaction. It's not what he's saying. He's saying we want to know why they buy stuff so that we can sell them more.
Increasing our A&P budgets, driving new and innovative experiences with the consumer, surrounding them with a host of engagement opportunities, whether that's big budget movies like we have with the upcoming D&D Honor Among Thieves movies, or great video games like we have with Magic the Gathering Arena. And then last but not least, the strategy is a focus on discipline, really driving incremental operational excellence as a company.
Operational excellence. Well, that is actually interesting. That's actually interesting because there are let's see where we can find a nice thing for you. Yeah, so there are 3 strategies that you can look for as a company. Again, my camera, I see this. But there are 3 strategies that you could follow, and what he is calling out is operational excellence. So what he wants, this is Dutch. Yeah. So what he wants to do is, he could focus on making a better product. That is one thing that they could do. What that would mean is they would, like he said before, focus on a few products. Right now they're focusing on a few brands, I guess. And make them really good, make the story behind it really good, make the cards really good, make the card quality better. But that's not what they will do. They won't be focusing on card quality, they won't be focusing on story quality, and art quality, of course, that's up to the artists as well. But they won't be putting more money into that. Customer intimacy, that's another one of those strategies. They won't be doing that either. They will not be focusing focusing on the customer and on their needs and on how satisfied they are. That they will be focusing on operational excellence, which means they will try to make the product cheaper to produce and to get more money out of it and to get the delivery systems better. I do agree that the delivery systems could get an update. So that is a good thing about this. The bad news for us is that they will also be focusing more on making it cheaper for them and getting more money out for themselves. So that is the downside for us.
So that we can pair the fantastic creativity and design we have with, stronger cost management. And we believe that we're going to be able to accrue significant value of that. In October, we talked about a goal to generate $250 to $300 million of cost savings annually over the next 3 years. We believe we're on track to do that and potentially even exceed that. And, I think that's just good business, whether or not it's healthy economic times or more challenging economic times. It'll position Hasbro to be able to invest in our brands and deliver more cash to shareholders. I think when you put it all together, what Blueprint 2.0 really is it's a redoubling and a refocusing on our traditional mission of play. Hasbro is going to celebrate our 100th anniversary next year. We have this portfolio of amazing brands, and we've built those brands through play, starting as early as the age of 2 to 3 and extending on into adulthood. And Blueprint 2.0 puts our focus squarely on our biggest brands with our best consumer insight and driving a little bit more discipline to pair with our great innovation and creativity.
He's not saying anything.
Fantastic. That was great for opening, Chris. Thank you. Cynthia, as Chris mentioned, Hasbro has a strong gaming portfolio unparalleled really in the industry, making up a significant portion of profits for the overall company. Could we talk about your largest brand, Magic the Gathering? And could you start by giving us a brief overview of where that business is today? And then I have a quick follow-up for you, Cynthia.
Sure. Well, thank you, Arpine, for having us. First of all, it's my pleasure to talk about Magic. It is really an amazing game with an incredible fan base. Magic was created in 1993, and it's the world's first trading card game. Been played by over 50 million players to date in over 200 countries. The gameplay is highly strategic and customizable to any individual's playstyle. Players take turns doing battle against each other by casting spells, summoning creatures, and using artifacts that are depicted on individual cards that the player draws by the player.
That's fantastic. Cynthia, when we think about Hasbro, we frequently think about kids, but Magic is not typically played by kids. What can you tell us and people on the call about the Magic player today and how that has been evolving?
Sure. We know a lot about our players. Multiple times a year, we survey tens of thousands of Magic fans on a variety of topics related to the game. The Magic active tabletop player, on average, is 30 years old. Players range from about 13 years old to over 45. I think it's important to know that 1/3 of our players have less than 3 years of experience with the game, and another third has been playing for more than 10 years. And so you end up with this wide range of engagement. We also look at how and why they play. We've seen growth in casual players, who we estimate represent about 80% of the player base, with the competitive player representing the remaining. And this single insight has really led to a major rethinking of our offering and how to serve our growing and more diverse player base. Players and fans participate across multiple segments, and they overlap. But for example, in the casual segment, the format that's most popular and played by more than 70% of our players is a social format called Commander. It's played by 4 players at a time, and it has a really unique and cooperative rule set. And we do specific product releases to maximize this fan engagement. Over half of our players identify as social players, meaning that they enjoy the game for the social experience. And about 50% are collectors of some kind, whether it be buying the cards for a themed commander deck, digital players with Magic Arena. And in the past few years, our fastest growing category of Magic players are the hybrid players, meaning they play on both digital and tabletop.
It's actually interesting because I don't feel I'm also, I think, a hybrid player because I play Arena a lot now. I also play Commander often, I think once a week. But it is a totally different experience to me because and that shouldn't be the case. Why? Because when I play Commander, it is of course smooth. It's in real life. Nothing can go wrong with the internet connection or something like that, or with my freaking camera. But when I play Arena, it's like mostly being salty about how slow people are playing, and it definitely isn't a social experience. It's definitely an asocial experience where we're sort of fighting the system, and this doesn't even. What I would say is make the online game feel more like the real game. That's what I would work on.
And this group tends to have the highest satisfaction rates with the game and the highest level of spending. In fact, they spend 40% more than the average revenue of Magic players across all expressions.
Yeah, because we interact with it more.
That was just great. I don't think I've ever heard this much of good color on kind of the player profile. So this was super helpful. Thank you. My next question is for both Chris and you, Cynthia. Chris, you were leading Wizards until earlier this year. Could you talk to us about how you grew that business? And then Cynthia, one of the key questions I get on Magic is that after an incredible run of 4 or 5 years of above average growth and arena rollout, that business is much bigger today. So if you were to recap what's next for Magic and how you grow that business going forward, because every gaming company on investors' minds saw uptick during COVID and now seeing the reversal of that. Why could MTG be different, and how you intend to grow that business going forward?
Sure, so I'll start off. So Magic has been, gosh, I would argue one of the biggest success stories in the games category over the last couple of decades. I was fortunate enough to start in the business in 2016 after the business had grown, I think, for 7 straight years. We had started to see a little bit of a plateauing in that growth in 2014 and 2015. And so we started to really understand, okay, why was that? And in 2016, when Magic, was probably around $350-ish million, maybe $400 million at that time, we really had a monolithic view of the player. We thought there was one player, it was the competitive player. And we knew that there were other player segments that existed, like casual players, collectors. But we honestly were a little afraid that if we built products that deviated at all from our traditional approach of appealing to the competitive player, that we would hurt the business. And what we found was actually the opposite. If we were able to segment our player profiles in just really simple ways, to call it the competitive player, the social player, and the collector, and build products that were bespoke to each of them, we could make each of those segments happier. We could engage them more. We could get more of their time and more of their share of wallet, and grow the business as a whole. And as a result, over that,
that does feel a little bit painful when they, I guess, because we are fans of the game, but also the image with it and stuff like that. We know and we joke about how expensive it is and how we are giving all our money to Wizards and stuff like that. But when they're talking about share of wallet for us, well, the consumers, as we are, can hear what they're saying. about us. It does hurt a little bit that they are talking about us as if we are walking wallets for them. Which must be true, is how they should think about it as a business perspective. But when you're addressing your audience and you know that people will watch this because that you have been in the news so much, that does still hurt a little bit that they say if we focus more on those people and fulfill a little bit of their wishes just enough so that it doesn't cost us too much, then we'll get more money from them.
Intervening 6.5 year period, we've probably either tripled or come close to triple the overall Magic business. And we've been able to do it across a wide set of products, a wide set of segments that have made the business healthier than ever. And we've been able to do it in a fairly balanced way, where we've been able to balance new player growth with lapsed player reacquisition, because there's probably like close to 60 million people in the world who have ever played Magic. So actually people coming back to Magic is just as important to us as new players who've never played it before, as well as driving a little bit of revenue growth per user through that segmentation approach, which has been good for us and it's been good for our channel partners, whether that's hobby stores, mass stores, or e-commerce partners like Amazon.
Great.
Cynthia,
And
I'll turn the
I don't
second
know,
part of the
Cynthia.
question maybe over to you.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about a little bit about our plans to continue to grow Magic, especially in 2023 and beyond. And I will say we do have some good tailwinds that
There
are
are no
aiding
follow-up
us.
questions. It's not a conversation.
Primarily that we are seeing this bold return to in-person play. Magic really thrives on that face-to-face interaction that wasn't able to happen during the pandemic. Our in-store play participation numbers are trending up, and they're already back to about 75% of where they were pre-pandemic. We recently organized the largest ever in-person event in Magic's history. We had over 10,000 players gather in person in Las Vegas to kick off our 30th anniversary celebration. It was such an
I do understand that they see this as a massive success, even though the reaction from the internet was, to me, felt negative. If there were a lot of people there, then sure, it was the biggest event ever. Even though maybe people weren't as happy about it because everything around it was such a fireside chat that but yeah, still logical that they think that it was a success.
Encouraging and fun fan event, and we plan on having 4 more of those Magic Cons next year. Our first one will be in Philadelphia on February 17th through the 19th.
February 17th.
We've been releasing 6 tentpole sets for several years. We'll do that again in 2023. With our new player acquisition strategy focused on the Universes Beyond line.
So this is actually a really important part, because what she's saying is that their new player acquisition strategy, so their new way to get new players, which is important for us as well. We want new players to get in. That strategy is to do Universe Beyond, which makes existing fans a little bit angry still. But of course, we might adapt to the change, and that's how it has been always. There's a new thing, people hate it, and eventually people start being okay with it. But I feel like the anger isn't away yet, and they are now going to put all of their eggs in the basket of Universe Beyond. So people come in, new players come in for the Transformer cards, and they really love it because they love that IP, and they get into Magic and they stay here. And those will be different people than the people that are here now. So probably if you don't like it and you really cannot get over the fact that, this sounds harsh, but what they're saying is, if you can't get over the fact that Universes Beyond is a thing now, you will be replaced by new customers. That is what I get out of this. That's why I think it is important to take note of what they're saying here. It does sound harsh, but we'll just have to deal with it if we like the game still.
This year we have The Lord of the Rings as a big tentpole release, and we also have smaller sets like Doctor Who that will attract in new players. In future years, you'll see us do the same with Final Fantasy and Assassin's Creed, which will join the franchise. And of course, we'll be celebrating Magic's 30th anniversary with our fans. The Magic Cons I mentioned. We'll be releasing new products, and we're especially excited to help our trade partners and our fans by offering exclusive promo cards from each year of Magic that will be available exclusively through our Wizards Play Network stores with every tentpole set release. You know, Magic is bigger than it's ever been. It's on pace to become Hasbro's first billion-dollar brand. And our surveys show that our Net Promoter Score globally has increased to the highest point it's been at in the past 3 years.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
It's only been growing.
Cynthia, maybe this is a question for you regarding Arena, which has been obviously a huge success. I remember back in the day before MTG digitization, you know, the big pushback or concern for investors was whether there was going to be cannibalization of that business once you go digital. And now we know it was actually additive to the business. But my question...
So cannibalization would mean that because you have one product, it will eat the other product, or it will eat, the customers will eat themselves because you put in an identical product and people will choose between the two that won't bring new business. But it's not really pushing people away usually. It would just keep it the same. But apparently Arena has pulled in new people that might have not been able to play offline, for example.
Question is there more to do in terms of monetizing kind of the digital aspects of the Magic franchise?
So can we get more money out of it?
Absolutely. You know, as I mentioned earlier, our hybrid players are the most engaged and they spend the most. So our efforts around Magic Digital will drive increased play and integration across both tabletop and our digital platforms. You know, Wizards Play Network stores are telling us that they see new players coming into their store who are ready to join that community after they learn to play Magic on Arena. Magic the Gathering Arena has been a great success for us, but it still has room to grow as we continue to invest to meet the needs of that wide range of players. So in 2023, Arena will refactor our new player experience to improve onboarding for new players and help them quickly find the play experiences that appeal to them the most. This will reinforce our acquisition efforts and maximize the impact of our launch on Steam, which is the biggest gaming platform in the world outside of mobile. And
Steam, okay. They will go onto Steam, okay, that's interesting. But the other part about this is I think what they're saying is they will put in new starter decks for new players. I think that's mostly what they're talking about, because that's what they always do.
It will be our largest platform expansion since our mobile launch last year. We'll continue to engage new players and longtime Magic players with our expanding product releases and our event offerings, including our first digital Universes Beyond set featuring Lord of the Rings. We've seen really great engagement with our premiere play launch this year.
So what will save Arena or Magic the Gathering, like what will push new growth, is, I want to put my hand up and start counting. It's one, make Universe Beyond for Lord of the Rings, and two, to put Arena on Steam. That will grow it.
2023 will see our first full year of Arena Championships and qualifier weekends, as well as our increasingly popular Arena Opens.
Great, thank you.
That's a good thing.
Chris, maybe this is a question for you. Inflation has been top of mind for investors, and ability to take on pricing also has been important. And we have seen kind of more traditional toy sector take on pricing throughout the pandemic, really. But as I think about kind of price elasticity of demand for Magic, in my mind at least, that is an overall less price elastic customer versus a kind of more traditional toy consumer.
Yeah, so what she's saying, price elasticity. Maybe I don't know if there's like a graph for that too. You probably, you might know it already, but we can, I think. Yeah, I guess. So what this is saying is if a customer is very price elastic, they will react to increases in price a lot. So you increase the price by 10%, like 30% less people will buy your stuff. If you put a certain amount of discount on it, they will sort of buy more. And basically it is how much effect your price has on that. And if there's inflation, people will have sort of less money or less spending power at least. So what will happen for Magic the Gathering if we are so price elastic as a consumer group is if there's a lot of inflation, if the economy is not going so well, we will buy less Magic. And this is pretty logical as well, because even I will not buy cards if I can't buy food. So I guess that's a way to explain it. But for a toy for a child or a traditional toy consumer will still buy something fun for their people around Christmas, even though it then becomes a more important need than our cards, probably.
First, do you think my assumption is correct? Second, do you believe pricing along with unit growth could drive Magic over the next couple years?
Yeah, I think just the straight answer to your question is yes, it tends to be a less price elastic customer, but obviously there's logical limits to that. We're very aware across our business of the pressures that the general consumer is under and the general discretionary sector is under vis-a-vis inflation. We have taken some pricing actions across our lineup at Hasbro. And, this year we took a pricing action on about half of the Magic line. The first time we've done that in 10 years. And, we're very reluctant to do that. We've got a great brand.
But they don't
we've got a great
push up
product.
price though.
The challenge that we've had is there's just been a lot of cost buildup inside of the general paper market. Paper pulp is more expensive, significantly
Paper
more
is
expensive.
more expensive. Let's see. Whoa, paper is more expensive. Going up way high. But that's also just a normal trend, I think. Doesn't seem too extreme actually. It is right now, it is pretty expensive, but it does just seem to follow the trend. So I don't think this is actually a valid thing. He said pulp, I think, as well. No, I don't think that it even seems. No, I don't think this is an extreme trend. If I look at this, it does seem to rise very fast, but the line is just the same as it has been. The increase is even declining a little bit.
It's been over the last couple of years. And the general trading card market, whether it's kind of fantasy or gamified trading cards like Magic or more sports-oriented trading cards, have seen explosive growth. So there's a fair amount of printing press demand that drives up some cost pressures. Now, all that said, when we look at how we think about growing Magic over time, Cynthia would be the expert at this, but I don't think it's about raising prices on Magic cards or raising prices on Magic packs. At the end of the day, it's about growing our player base, and it's about leaning into our segmentation strategy and adding products that our players want and have a lot of play value and collector value. Mm-hmm. And I think Cynthia and the team have been doing a very adept job of that. Certainly, we have some of the best experts in the company.
I don't think we answered our question.
Great, and that's actually a good segue to my question for Cynthia, which is, if it isn't price, are you releasing then more product this year? Could you sort of go through pillars of growth for Magic, and if you can briefly address D&D, but then we'll get back to D&D in a bit. But if you could just sort of go through kind of those pillars of growth as you see for Magic. And I'm sorry, some of this could be a bit of a repeat of what you said earlier, Cynthia.
Absolutely fine. Our growth is coming from both our customer and product segmentation strategy, which is backed by a lot of the data and insights into Magic's different fan bases. We have innovated and experimented more in the last 4 years than we did in the prior 26. And as a result, we're serving more player segments than ever before. And so there's been a shift in how many SKUs we release in a year. So for example, we've been on a cadence of 6 tentpole releases a year for over 3 years now. And they are major releases that have the most to offer every kind of Magic player. With each of those tentpole releases, we have expanded the number of booster.
Actually, this is an interesting point, because we have been complaining, I think, about the fact that there are too many sets and a little bit too little quality. And what they are saying is, we're going to do more of that thing that you thought was a problem. We are going to make more SKUs, we are going to make more sets. We want to diversify our product lines and really focus on the products that will drive us the most money, and make more products and more products and more products and more products, and they will be cheaper for us but more expensive for you. And I think that's exactly what we don't want. Maybe we would even prefer less sets, and maybe to pay more for it even. if it's a good set, but right now there are just too many, and they want too much from us, and we indeed we have to say no to products, and we can't stay a fan in that degree of everything that comes out, and that is the problem that we experience. But they say, even though you're not a fan of every product, we still make money from it, so what are you complaining about?
Product types to meet player preferences, including adding set boosters and collector boosters.
Okay.
And then we'll have smaller print run products sprinkled between those tentpole releases that are opt-in, depending on what type of player you are and what resonates with you.
Yeah,
so we have a collectible product line called Secret Lair, and we do some smaller sets like Infinity that fall in that category.
It is true.
But if I were summarizing it, I'd say our growth has come from monetizing more player segments, and not just from increasing the spend of the same core set of players. And our product release schedule really reflects that. But I will say that in the second half of 2022, we have...
So they're saying we don't want to focus on our existing players. We want to focus on driving more customers to our company. And that is a valid business decision, but it sucks for us.
We had a really compressed release schedule that was partially driven by supply chain issues. We will not schedule tentpole releases this closely together going forward. The supply chain issue I referenced resulted in 2 micro sets releasing on the same date in October. But in 2023, we will return to our preferred release cadence of approximately 2 months between our tentpole sets, with individual micro sets sprinkled in between.
So 6 sets.
You asked about D&D.
6 sets. That's still way too much. You will have 2 months of rest between a set. And micro sets sprinkled in between. But that's exactly the problem. Every set feels like a new set.
Really briefly, I'll say that you'll see us leaning heavily into the expansion of D&D through D&D Beyond, the acquisition that we did that closed this past May. We have about 13 million customers, registered users there that we will continue to serve by giving them more ways to express their fandom.
Fantastic, and we'll have time, hopefully, if we have time, to come back to D&D briefly after we are done sort of with Magic. But Cynthia, I have a follow-up for you. There has been this claim that you're printing too many cards. What is your one sentence answer to that, or maybe 2 sentences, whatever you prefer?
I'm going to go a little more than 2 sentences.
Yeah, I would love that.
Most of our Magic releases and our SKUs are print to demand. And this means that we print and reprint products in a set to support players and customers who want to buy it, usually to play with it. And after an initial set,
so what the saying is, we look at our data and we grind out the print too much.
Selling period prior to the launch of a set, all reorders after that set reflect real demand. And our average post-launch sales quantities for a tentpole premiere set remains unchanged in 2022 compared to 2021. In aggregate, there is no evidence that Magic is overprinted, and the sentiment of...
So she's not saying no, she's just saying there's no evidence. That's the first thing, so probably yes. Otherwise she would say there is evidence that we haven't printed too much. And the other thing she's saying is we have been looking at our data, so what are you talking about? Why are you proclaiming? But sometimes, and this is not to attack a person, but sometimes you look at data and you see the trend, like the price of paper, and you look at it and you don't understand it enough, and then you make a wrong assumption. It happens.
Magic needs to cut print runs to support prices. That's a misunderstanding of our business and our customers. You know, if our prices for a print-to-demand product rise significantly soon after launch, well, that simply means that we're not adequately meeting customer demand, and we are making millions of players unhappy at their lack of ability to acquire the cards they want to play.
No, that's really helpful. And I do want to go back briefly to distribution, Cynthia. With all this kind of player segmentation, what is the primary way you're getting Magic product into players' hands, and how that has changed versus 5 years ago?
Sure. Our partnership with the more than 6,000 global Wizards Play Network hobby stores, that is the core sales channel for our business. It accounts for up to 70% of our sales in 22 year to date. And we are really delighted that we can support those passionate local small business owners to provide unique opportunities for our fans to engage in organized play and to build community at the local level. And this is really at the heart of our engagement strategy, and it has great benefits for both parties, as indicated by our survey data. Every year we carry out a survey among the WPN hobby stores, and we collected feedback this year from more than 2,200 of them. It's a large representative sample, and it gives us a really good pulse on their health. And we're pleased to see that this channel continues to grow, has strong performance. More than 80% of our stores reported that they are growing or equal to last year, and over 60% report growth in their business. Now, over the last 5 years, we've continued to evolve our omni-channel retail strategy. That involves continuing to expand our footprint at retail globally, e-commerce, as well as developing our direct-to-consumer collectible offering.
Fantastic. Cynthia, maybe this is still for you. There has been some chatter, kind of secondary market for these cards, and that values are coming down because you're printing too much. Is that something that you keep track of? Is that something that concerns you?
You know, first and foremost, Magic is a deep and strategic game that is played in hobby stores, on kitchen tables, and online. So our goal is to continue to grow that player base. And as I said previously, we print and reprint products to meet demand from our players. Magic will be our first billion-dollar brand this year. And we're growing that brand ahead of the industry and pushing the boundaries of where we can take it.
We're making a lot of money. It's one thing that we're saying here. We're looking at our data. She's saying that again. And it's a strategic game. It's all not talking about printing in my book, but well, the thing about the data is, but still, it doesn't answer the question at all.
Product. More often than not, we get that right, like our Universes Beyond product, Warhammer 40K, which is already on its third reprint due to demand. And sometimes we step back and we listen to customer feedback, like we did on our recent 30th anniversary edition, where we scaled back the expected supply to assure a great collector experience. Now,
A great collector, like that the product is hard to get, I guess. A great collector experience.
that decision might not have been great for us in the short term financially, but it was definitely the right call for the long-term health of the brand, and it's good for our fans. Now, we do understand that some players focus on the collectible trading aspects of our product, and we are always thrilled to see players enjoying and valuing our product for years after the initial release. But we don't participate in secondary market activity for Magic.
So, okay, we don't, and I agree, they don't have anything to do with the secondary market, and it's not their responsibility to make the secondary market a good thing. It's the product you buy, so you lose the money. But that was not the question.
Magic products, nor do we derive any revenue from trading or selling. What we do hear from some of our WPN stores that trade and sell cards after initial sale is that, like any market or any other collectible product, some products and individual cards do become more collectible than others, and values can change over time.
Yeah, so they don't know. Well, they do know. This is a lie. What she's saying is we don't know which cards will be sought after. And sure, there are moments where you might say, this is a card, I don't see the problem, and it turns out to be a combo with another card, and you didn't know about that, like a Feather Guardian, for example. But you do know which cards are really good. If you make something, if you used to make 2 mana 2/2s and now you make a 2 mana 5/5, you know that will be sought after, I guess, because it's such a big stat line. If we take a really simple example, you do know which cards will be sought after. You do know when you print or reprint or make a Black Lotus that people will want the card. You do know that when you make a Planeswalker that they will be sought after because it is that character. You do know which ones will be sought after. And well, what's important as well is she says we don't have anything to do with the secondary market, but the value, like she puts it, of the cards does dictate the value of a pack of the product of Magic the Gathering as a brand. And so they do have something to do with that, and they have to look at the value. And if that drops because they print too much, then that is a business choice that you have to make. You have to say, if they say we want to push more product because we want to make more profit, because we know that people who like the specific product will buy it, so we will print more and we will make more sets, or maybe not necessarily print more, but we will make more sets, then the individual cards will be worth less. You know that is the truth, and you know that it will hurt your brand value because the cards are worth less. So yeah, you do have something to do with it. It's just that it's a short-term win and a long-term loss. That's what they're saying as well. We want to focus on the short term so that we can make more money for whatever reason they need it, and we don't care as much as about the long term.
Due to a multitude of external factors, many entirely unrelated to the number of cards printed. Now, we have no indication that there has been any broad negative changes to interest in trading or post-purchase selling of Magic
They
products.
have the data, they said.
It could be easy for someone who is unfamiliar with our pre-release sales strategy to draw a negative conclusion about changes in resale values shortly after the release. But the truth is that Magic products are regularly put on sale early, exclusively through our WPN stores, as part of a pre-release program that is designed to encourage in-store play at those stores. It is common and expected for the secondary market values for those new products to shift dramatically during and immediately following pre-release as more products become available in the market. Those value shifts are simply supply catching up with
I don't
demand.
think so.
Yeah, I do think there's a fair amount of misunderstanding about all of this. So thank you for that. And I am scanning through some of the questions that I've been getting, but let me just sort of address one that also has come up. You know, talent acquisition and retention, I know has been, and the fact that Magic has to compete with the big tech is something that Hasbro has been pretty focused on as you build those teams. I'm wondering if that has eased a bit in terms of hiring and retention, given what's going on in the big tech world.
Yeah, you know, we've hired over 350 people this year at Wizards of the Coast, and given the macroeconomic climate, we are also seeing some availability of amazing talent in the market. And our attrition is low compared with other gaming companies. You know, people want to work at Wizards for a number of reasons. Primarily, they're working on games they love. Our games have incredibly loyal, passionate fans who are excited to work on and help shape the games that they've grown up playing. And of course, it's always great to work on a business that is growing and being invested in.
Okay, but yeah, people like being in a growing company, but that you're saying that they want to work with you because they have been fan of the product for a long time, that does tell me that they are not working with their employees too well.
Great. And this question is perhaps both for Chris and you, Cynthia. I was wondering if you could share your vision on how you approach D&D monetization and digitization.
So that was it, I guess, about the Magic part. Hope it was useful for you as well. I found it interesting. Have a nice day.